Hi, I'm Celeste and welcome to Find Your Purple. Today is day 10 of 40 Days of Reflection. And the concept today I wanted to toss out there is that God draws us. And that's a concept I'd never heard of until I started reading the Bible and going to classes. And there's a verse in John 6:44 that starts with, "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them." And it's basically, it's said in different places, but I talk to different people, and there are a lot of really, really interesting stories on what brought people back to church. And I'm more interested sometimes, I guess, in the people that were like me. I was away for 40 years. Why now? What drew me back? And I know through my life I had a lot of opportunities where people around me decided to give their life over to Jesus and to claim, Jesus as their Savior. I know I went to an organization called Young Life throughout high school. Now, granted, I did it more for social reasons than for the Bible studies. It was taught by students from Taylor, which was a Christian campus nearby. And I remember we went to a Young Life church camp in Colorado. I had to save the money for it. And I remember that was my first experience with people being called forward to, declare themselves. I didn't go forward, but I remember my close friend Pam did. And she, as far as I know, I moved out of state, years ago. But I know when I went back in the early days, she got married and she was still very true to the faith. And so again, that whole experience spoke to her. And she was drawn in, as were many other people. And it's like in a revival setting, when they go to even tent revivals and all of that, not everyone gets the call. Not everyone feels they're being called. One of my sisters was a missionary in Africa for years, and she used to say, that she received the call. And, we joke about it, my other sister and I, that if I got the call, I hung up. And I've said that before, but it didn't have the meaning it does now. Because again, I went 40 years without going to church. And the same couple that invited me this last time had invited me before. I just kept saying no. And for some reason this time, I just didn't feel I had another excuse. And I went reluctantly. I didn't intend to continue going to church. I didn't really want to go. It was kind of a hassle. My Sunday mornings I liked were quiet, and I didn't have clients typically, so I liked it that way. So again, the fact I went and then started staying and then became interested in reading the Bible, and that whole journey of events, there's really not an explanation for it. I kind of feel like I was called. And if you look at the Bible, Moses was called. He had the burning bush. Gideon, he was the one with the fleece, where he wanted to test the voice to make sure it was really God. So he gave him what they call the fleece test now. We had Mary was called. Abraham was called. Noah was called to build the ark. David, was called out of the field, and God spoke to him through Samuel. So Jesus calls you. And again, that's an interesting concept to me. And he calls you more than once. From what I gather in talking to people, he gives you more than one chance. But I'm here to say, maybe listening to this video is a call to you. Maybe it speaks to you. It might be multiple people watching it, but it only speaks to you. And that's his calling of you. And so anyway, I encourage you to, again, read the Bible. And the more you read it, the more interesting it gets, which is really kind of funny, but it does work that way. Because I didn't get anything out of it initially the first time other than a structure and a feeling of how it all fit together, but it still wasn't speaking to me. And again, going back another time, I guess it's like Game of Thrones. I was talking to my daughter, and she was saying her boyfriend, she watched Game of Thrones, he didn't want any part of it. And then somehow someone else mentioned it, so he started watching it, and they had warned him, stay in it. The first few shows aren't really interesting. It moves slow. It's trying to introduce everyone. But if you keep watching, it starts picking up and it starts making sense. And sure enough, I guess he's on season 7 now. And I'm not saying I even like the Game of Thrones. I don't know what it's really about. I just know it's stressful and not really my kind of thing. But it's one of those things that sometimes with the Bible, don't be discouraged if it doesn't speak to you right away. It will. Just keep at it. So that's my thought for the day. As always, grab your cup of tea, sit back, and let's start sharing. Until next time, bye-bye.